Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, this is the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com, and I'm here with a kind-hearted woman named Mariana, who's agreed to share this session with you so that you can benefit from her experience and strength and hope and wisdom, as well as her trials and tribulations and stumbles and falls. Right, Mariana?
Right on. Yes.
Right on. You must be from my generation. Right on.
I sure am. I think I'm probably a little bit older than you because I'm already 60.
I turned 60 in August, so.
Oh, no, I'm going to be 61, so I'm your elder.
Okay, well then I will listen to you tell me what to do then.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Mariana, why don't you just give me a little background about your story and your struggle with food before you came to us, and then let me know what happened, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, sounds good. So I do have quite a long and extensive history with food and eating and binging and all of that. So I remember my first high with food when I was 6 years old. And my aunt had made me a BLT, bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. And I was high from it. It was euphoria. It was like I had never experienced anything like that. And it was just like, wow, what is this? So that was my first experience.
She woke up your inner pig.
She totally woke it up. Thank you, Aunt Elena. Made it So you would think at that time that I would, start to obsess with food right away. But I didn't start right away. I mean, I started soon after. So in about the third grade, that is when my full-blown food obsessions started. So at that time, all I could think about was food. Food was on my mind 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I could think of nothing else but food. I was constantly obsessed with it. When I was in school, this is like a really weird kind of thing, but when the kids would take turns reading out loud, the kids' voices actually reminded me of certain foods.
Really?
Yeah, it was so weird, but it did. Like everything reminded me of food. So they would be reading. I'm like, her voice sounds very creamy. That reminds me of cheesecake. So everything in my world was about food at that time, only at school, because at home it was a different story. At home, I could eat whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. There was no boundaries. There was nothing. I didn't have to hide food. My mother condoned it. My father made fun of me. But while I was in school, I started to feel this deep shame about wanting food so much and about constantly thinking about it. We would have recess and we were allowed to order either, regular milk, chocolate milk, or orange juice and a pretzel. And I never ordered one because I was so ashamed of how much I wanted it. But I was obsessed with it, and I didn't want other kids to see me eating it because I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be like the Cookie Monster and just devour the pretzel. I can't let them see me eating it. There was this one girl in my class who was thin, and she would always order her pretzel and chocolate milk, which I coveted. I always wanted that. And she would just like daintily take off pieces of the pretzel. And, she was very nonchalant about it. And sometimes she would throw the pretzel out without eating it. And I was like, what?
What's wrong with her? What's wrong with
her? I was just looking at her pretzel and she's lucky I just didn't jump on her and get the pretzel and the chocolate milk.
Mariana, just so you're not ashamed and alone, when I was in the second grade, my mother would pack me a sandwich and a chocolate milk for lunch. And I figured out I could trade my sandwich for chocolate milk with the other kids. And then I got really good at it, so I could trade half the sandwich for chocolate milk. My lunch consisted of 3 chocolate milks. So,
Oh my gosh. Good thing we were not in the same class.
yes, it would have been double the trouble.
We would have beat each other up for that chocolate milk.
So, how long did this go on?
That just started the food obsession, right? It's gone away now, but the obsession did not go away until really your program. But then when I was in fifth grade, of course, after all that eating, I was significantly overweight. Oh, by the way, I just want to say that when I was 6 and I had that high with the BLT, I really liked my body at that time. That was like the only time in my life that I liked my body. And I was thin. That was the only time, 6 years old. I just want to throw that out there. Then when I was in the fifth grade, of course, I was significantly overweight for my age and my height. And then I was like, oh, wow, I'm fat. I better do something about this. So I started to starve myself. And the pig was like right there. Of course, I did not know the pig was there, but the pig was there. So I thought that what I would do to help myself, my goal was to not eat anything at all or drink even water for one entire month. I made these little blocks on paper that I would check off the days, like, oh, I made it through today. So my goal was to do that for 30 days. And then I thought that once I did that, I would lose weight and I could then press this magic button and then I could magically eat anything I wanted and I would never gain weight again. So obviously that never happened. I was never able to sustain not eating or drinking water for that amount of time. So what would happen is I would get dizzy. I would feel like I was going to pass out. I started to have heart palpitations, which I didn't tell anybody about. And even if I did, I don't think people in my life at that time would have really said anything. They would have just said, ignore it, it'll go away.
This was like the early 70s.
Yes. Oh, yes, you were there. Yes, early 70s. So nobody really understood, knew, cared, whatever. So what would happen is when I would start to feel dizzy or wanted to faint or having the heart palpitations, I would freak out and I would run and get food and I would eat and then that would turn into a binge. But it was only one binge, right? So then I would have the binge and then I would totally hate myself, feel disappointed in myself, and then say, I got to get the whip out and I got to pull myself back together and I got to go back on this thing and I'm going to do this because damn it, I'm very determined to lose weight. And then I would do that. And then the cycle would just repeat itself over and over and over again until I was going into college. And the other thing about that time is that, and here's the pig again, I didn't feel that I deserved to eat food. I didn't feel that I deserved to drink water. I didn't even feel that I deserved to take a shower and brush my teeth and wear nice clothes because I was fat. So I didn't feel like I deserved any of those things. And so starving was the only way to solve that problem.
You had a full-fledged eating disorder.
Oh, yes. Right in the fifth grade. But when I went into the sixth grade, nobody recognized me because they were like, who are you? Because I had lost all this weight, but this is what I did, at the expense of my health and school and all that stuff. Then when I started high school, I added another layer to that. And I know you will identify with this too, because I know you were an exercise person. So then I said, okay, you know what? I need to really amp this up. So I started to exercise obsessively and school would start at 8 in the morning and I would get up at 5 in the morning and I live in New Jersey. The only time I wouldn't do this is when it was snowing, but when it was cold, it was raining, it was dark, it didn't matter. I would go out at 5 in the morning and I would jog, I would ride my bike and I would roller skate. I did that all before school. And then I did allow myself to have black coffee. But of course, the heart palpitations and
Nobody noticed these problems. You weren't taken to doctors or anything like that?
no, I'll tell you what they did. Nobody noticed, nobody cared. The only time somebody noticed was I went to a small school and I had a class on the last floor. By the time I climbed up all those stairs, I was like, I'm dying. And so the teacher said, you know what, get her some chocolate milk and cookies because she's probably on a diet. And that was it. That was the extent of somebody noticing.
And so in the interest of time, just take me through how far this progressed before you got help.
Well, when I was in college, at the age of 20, I went to a therapist and she told me that I had to deal with the underlying issues. And once I dealt with the underlying issues, that my eating would be resolved. And of course, that didn't happen because I could dig and dig and dig. And I wasn't really dealing with the faulty thinking. I wasn't dealing with that. I didn't know, nobody knew, nobody told me. So it all really kind of went in that direction. My therapist died when I was 35. I needed to find something, found OA, and that was the nail in my coffin because the powerlessness stuff just did me in. I did not know this at the time, but it reinforced and it justified many things that had happened in my life, many messages that I was given, like you're really here on this planet to serve, you're at the whim of other people, you have no autonomy, you have no self-control, you can't do any of that. So even though I only went to OA for a few years, all of that stuck with me. It was always in my brain for 23 years. In those 23 years, I gained over 100 pounds.
So you were in OA for 23 years.
I went to OA, to the groups, the meetings, for a couple of years, but the mindset was in my head for 23 years until I found you.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, until I found you.
Did you have any years of peace with the food during that time, or was it all?
Never, 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 ever, ever, ever. Because the powerlessness thing, I was not even conscious of it, but my pig took hold of that, like ran with it. So it was like, well, I had a slip, right? Well, the slip turned into days, weeks, months of binging because why am I going to do this? I'm powerless anyway. What's the use? Let me keep going. And then I kept going. And then I would get back for a day and then it would happen again. And that was 23 years. And I know it's 23 years because my son is just turned 23. Well, it might be even more than 23 years, actually. It might be like 24 years I had gone before my son was born. So probably 24 years. And then I was desperate and looking for something. And that's when I found your book. And everything has changed for me since then.
I want to find out exactly how it changed. I'm just going to make a little disclaimer from the audience that I didn't design this to treat anorexia or bulimia or even binge eating, but some people say that it really helps. And it makes sense to me that it really helps because we eradicate the notions of powerlessness and we get people making intellectual decisions about what to eat. And we don't really get caught up in the emotional problems. We acknowledge that they're there and we recommend people work with, licensed professionals to do that. But we focus on very practical methods to stop overeating, stop starving yourself, stop binging. So, okay, Mariana, tell me what happened.
Yeah, so I found your book. I was sitting in the parking lot in ShopRite and I was looking through my phone and desperate and found your book and started reading it right then and there. I couldn't put it down and I got to the point, this has been both like in your book and because I did sign up for, the intensive. This is the thing that totally changed everything for me. This is the foundation of what I do now. This is the core. This is what blew me out of the water. When you said, okay, powerlessness is the cardinal sin of binge eating. And maybe I'm not quoting you directly, but
No, it is. It
okay.
is. Yeah.
I had no idea what was going to happen to me after that. This was not something I thought of. When you said that, it stopped me dead in my tracks. I cannot thank you enough because that has changed everything for me.
Buying into the illusion that you're powerless. It's the cardinal problem. It's the quintessential sin in binge eating. It's what causes all the rest of the problem, in my estimation.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you because that's my foundation. I could do anything after that. And that was the thing that turned it all around for me because every other squeal I can defeat, but that was the base. That was the big thing.
Do you know how I know that we're not powerless?
Is it because if somebody kidnapped my son and they told me I couldn't eat cookies for a year, I wouldn't?
Well, yeah, that's part of it. There's a thought experiment about if a dictator were to kidnap the person you love most in life or someone you admire most in life and threaten to use the entire resources of the country to torture that person if you did not follow a particular food rule or, stop eating sugar or something, that most people say they could do it. The exception proves that it's not possible. It's not possible to be powerless. The real reason I know I'm not powerless is that there are all these thoughts inside me that suggest I should break the rule, which I call my pig. I call it my inner pig or my inner food monster. And if my food monster had any power at all, it wouldn't have to convince me. It wouldn't have to talk. Those thoughts wouldn't exist. Those thoughts are demonstrations in and of themselves, no matter what the pig says, no matter how convincing it sounds. The fact that it has to talk to go and take the slop, to go get the junk food, that means that I'm not powerless. That means that it's treating me like the king and it's begging me to grant it a reprieve. That's how I know that I'm not powerless. The idea of powerlessness, in my estimation, is the cardinal sin in overeating because it's an abdication of free will and responsibility, and it paves the way to do exactly what you said. Well, I'm powerless anyway, so I might as well just keep going, right? And I'm just going to have to wait until God removes these character defects from me. I'm going to have to wait until God removes the desire to overeat. Oh, well, too bad, so sad, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and then the pig gets really happy. So,
You hit the nail on the head with that. I just have to tell you, you hit the nail on the head.
how did that manifest in your life? How did you integrate that into your life to help you with food?
Well, I did a lot of refutations. One thing was getting out, articulating all the squeals was extremely powerful. And I worked on that with my amazing, wonderful coach, Fiona. So I articulated, I refuted it, and then I would see things in my life.
Give me an example of a refutation.
So one of my early ones was like, I have no willpower. I don't have free will. The refutation was, well, I needed to go to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom. I needed to do this for work. I did this for work. I needed to do all these things and I did it. I decided that I was going to do it. I could have decided that I wasn't going to do it. That would have been free will too. But I did what I needed to do. Nobody is holding a gun to my head. I chose to do it. It kind of started with that, and it was like long and intense, and they were just getting better and better to the point where this is so ridiculous. Of course, I am powerful over food. I am not powerless. How ridiculous is this pig? So I 100% now totally believe that I have power over this.
You looked at every example you could find where you made a conscious and purposeful choice to do something. And eventually you realized that if you could choose to do those things, that you could choose not to binge. And also, if you can choose to binge, then you can choose not to binge.
Yeah. Some examples of it, like when I would have a slip, right? So I'm like, okay, I had a slip. I do not need to have a binge over a slip, and I wouldn't have a binge. I have power over this for whatever reasons. I took ownership of that. I did. Okay. And now it doesn't need to go further. It hasn't gone further. I did have one binge in September, but that was it. It's like, okay, I have a slip. I don't need to go further. Before, I had a slip. It would go on for weeks and days. And
What you're describing is a normal progression through the reacquisition of control and power, where it occurs after the binge, where you kind of wake up halfway through or three quarters of the way through and say, wait a minute, I can stop. And then the binges become shorter and less intense. And then you say, well, I could really choose just not to do this. And since I can make any rule I want to, and nobody's telling me what to eat, and I could decide, what my food plan is going to be, it's kind of silly to break these rules that I set for myself because I do have the power.
mm-hmm. I'm not talking myself into it. It's like, I totally 100% believe this with my soul. I am not powerless over food. I have total power over what I eat and over my next steps. And so that has been like the greatest gift of your program. And nobody had ever, ever remotely said that, because that's not what society believes. That's not what mainstream organizations believe, the whole 9 yards. And you were like, wow, you just blew me away. And I just want to thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And I'm still legally required to tell everyone that anorexia, bulimia, the feeling like you don't deserve to eat, the starving yourself and then overeating seemingly beyond all hope and reason, that can be very dangerous, and it's important to be evaluated by a professional. And even though I am a professional, I'm not one in this context because I can't offer those services. My life isn't set up like that. I do need to make that disclaimer, which seems counter to what I really believe, and in some ways, some ways it is, because I do believe that everybody can choose to have a normal relationship with food, but it doesn't feel like that. often for years at a time for people, it just doesn't feel like that. And I would like to believe that the information we provide can eradicate those feelings quickly for everyone. And I wholeheartedly believe everything that I've told you, but just because this goes out to the masses and I might not have a chance to talk to you directly, I just want to make sure that everybody does have a professional team in place. Mariana, is there anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you? Do you want to come back for a part 2 of this? It sounds like you have a lot more to say. We're going to run out of time.
Absolutely. Yes, I would really enjoy that. Thank
Is there one
you.
more thing you'd like to share with people before we go today?
I just really, really, really want to say thank you because you have really thought about these things, these issues in such a deep way. And you have really paved the path for me and for like so many other people. And I feel like I'm on a different road right now because of you. I know you talk about interdependence, not dependence, but that you're sharing this with all of us. I am just so grateful to you and the work that you've done.
Thank you so much, and I couldn't do it without you. And I appreciate the vulnerability and risk-taking that you are engaging in by coming here and sharing this. And I appreciate all the additional deep thinking you've done about the work because that always only moves it forward.
Okay, thank you.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.